You remember where you were December 7th, 1941?
Yeah. I was in Rutgers prep school, sitting listening to all of the Japanese bombers in Pearl Harbor, sitting in the main auditorium.
Oh, gosh.
From that point on, I went into the service in 42. Started actually in 43. 8th Air Force. Great Ashfield is where I flew out of.
In the month after the attack on Pearl Harbor, the U.S. Army's 8th Air Force is established in Savannah, Georgia. It has 7 men and no planes. Less than a year later, it is tasked with defeating the most powerful air force in the world, the German Luftwaffe. 26,000 8th Air Force men will die, more than the U.S. Marines lost in all of World War II.
I was in the 459th Heavy Bombardment Group of the 8th Air Force.
Right.
What did I get? The Air Medal, 2 Bronze Stars, whatever. The first mission we had, you close your ears. We're flying through and I'm looking ahead, and there's all kinds of blackness throughout the sky, and it's all shrapnel from anti-aircraft. And I hear over the intercom, "Keep a tight, asshole." I flew as a crew member in a B-17. Okay. As soon as we got to the English Channel, I got on the guns, and I was a left gunner. And I did other things. When you bomb, sometimes you have so many planes that you don't have a bombardier, and we didn't, so you what they call trigger from the first bomber. So I used to have to pull pins, walk in the bomb bay and pull pins.
More than 1,000 American and British heavy bombers will target German aircraft factories and industrial facilities.
I remember we're bombing Royan, one of the last strongholds of the damn Nazis in France. And we were carrying these bombs with gel in them. And that was in the bomb bay, and I was in the radio room, and I looked up, and the more altitude you got, the more this gel came out. And I thought, holy hell, if we get hit with this thing, this is a flaming coffin.
Is that when you threw up in your gas mask?
What?
Is that when you threw up in your gas mask?
I did that a couple times. The commanding officer talks to you and tells you where you're going to go. And there's all groans. We're going to go to Essen today. Essen is where they make all the ball bearings, and you've got a lot of action there. So that's what you do. When you group at first thing in the morning and it's early and you've got fog and you have to group in layers of bombing planes, and they all get together by shooting a flare of different colors to know what bomb group or what layer you're in.
Right.
And man, when you've got look out the window and some plane is sticking in your bomb bay, it's then you keep it tight.
Number of planes go out on a mission. Some of them don't come back with you. Some planes get shot down. Did you have that experience where some of your group was lost?
Sure.
When you finally land and somebody's counting planes, what goes on in your mind? What goes on in your mind? Not every...
I'm 19, 20 years old. I'm thinking, thank you, God, I'm here back safe.
Right.
And you walk into a line, and the first thing you do is give you a little glass of Calvados. You drink that and say, can I have some more? And they say, no.
How did you feel when some of your friends didn't make it back?
I don't know what I might say. Remorse, sad, but glad that I was alive. Mm-hmm. And I think now of some very good friends I had in high school that didn't come back, and I thought, geez, even now I wished I'd have been more friendly to them. Mm-hmm. Guys that I knew. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do? Well, I'll give you an idea of how the people felt about us, and I don't know that it's true of all the ministers, but when we first came in here and the women greeted us and were putting us in different locations, and she said, oh, you guys are a mess to us. And I said to them, well, we didn't ask to be here. The saying was, the Americans are oversexed, overpaid, and overhere. You've heard that before. That's how they felt.
Were you?
Yeah. Down Piccadilly, there was a lot of women there, and there's some guy standing on the corner, a little old man. He says, papers, 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 rubbers, rubbers, rubbers.
He provided a service. That's good.
Full service, yeah.
Well, it's what it was.
In London at all?
Sure.
Were you there during that? Were they still bombing? Were they still bombing London at the time?
At the end of it, we were there during the damn buzz bombs. Yeah, I remember running for shelters.
And there really was not much advance notice, was there?
Nothing. Just a siren, and then you ran. I am no hero. I had my missions. One of the scariest missions was after the war. Amsterdam, Holland was inundated by water to stop the Nazis, but it also stopped them from eating, no farmland, no nothing. We were called in to drop food to them. Mm-hmm. You flew in at 500 feet with all these other planes around. I get out in the bomb bay, no damn rope to hold me or anything, just standing out there, and I'm supposed to throw out all this food in bags. And you flew at a low altitude because if you went up too high, the bags would be destroyed and the food would be destroyed. And I looked down there at the land and I said, shoot, priest, if I fall out of here, I'm not going to open a parachute. Wow. I'm just talking to myself. Yeah. But I think of this every once in a while. And I say to myself, you know, White, the Lord's with you. You're pretty lucky. And I was walking the beach. And here's a guy coming out from my left from a townhouse. And we came together. And I said, hi, how are you? And I was talking to him, just friendly. He says, I'm from Holland. I said, oh, yeah, whereabouts? He says, Amsterdam. Well, I said, I knew Amsterdam. I dropped some food for you guys. He said, you saved our lives. He says, I was 19 years old standing in the top of a building watching you people drop the food.
Wow.
Made me feel good. And I can remember after the war, our pilot took us over on top of the Eiffel Tower and we did a figure eight around the Eiffel Tower.
Wow.
That was to me quite a... I looked down and there was the Eiffel Tower. My brother, who was 6 years older than I was killed. He was a captain flying the Hump, who supplying General Stillman for the Japs, fighting the Japs, and he was killed, lost his way. It was a long time before we in the family could find out what happened to him until such time as the Army came to me, the Air Force came to me and said that a herdsman was walking into the Himalaya mountains and found the remains of this plane. They couldn't get him out because he was a pilot and he hit the side of a mountain and the nose buckled up. And they had no way of getting his remains out because the plane was so heavy. But we went to Arlington and went through a ceremony for the remains of the other 4 members of his crew and celebrated in honor of him.
Right.
My mother was the hero because I was flying out of England and my brother was killed and she was tough on her. Awful. My father had been passed away since '39, so it was only my brother left, my mother left with my younger brother. So it was really tough on her.
Right.
She was a real hero.
Right. So you come back to the States. At some point, you have a reunion with your mother.
Yep.
What was that like?
Heartwarming. A lot of. You know what bothers me? As a 91 old fart thinking back, kids and people don't understand what we went through, because this is the greatest war in the history of man.